Okay, folks, section 7.1, it says percents, fractions, and decimals. But really, the thing we're really talking about is percents, okay? Now, the percent sign is that little thing right there, okay? And we would read this as 11%. But remember, a percent is just a fraction. It's a special kind of fraction. It's a fraction with 100 on the bottom, okay? So I can write it without the denominator, and if I do that, I have to put the percent sign behind it. Or I can write it with the denominator, 11%, okay? Good. Now let's use that information. We're going to do these examples right here, okay? We use percents in our lives all the time. I want 100% of your effort. Or, I made a 94% on my test, okay? There's a 30% chance of rain. We use percents all the time, okay? Now, in example number 1, it says write 15% as a fraction and as a decimal. Okay, so I need to do two things. I'm going to write it as a fraction first. Well, look, this just means I didn't write it with the denominator. So I'm just going to write 15 over 100, 15%. Okay? Now I've written it with the denominator. Now, I'm going to use this to help me write it as a decimal. It says 15 hundredths is another way that I can read this fraction. 15 hundredths. Well, that just looks like this as a decimal. 0.15, right? 15 hundredths. Now, whenever my answer is a fraction, I have to reduce it. Okay? So 15 over 100. 5 goes into both of them 3 times and 20 times. Okay? Now let's look down at this bottom part, at B. It says write 0.8 as a fraction and as a percent. Let's write it as a fraction first. Okay? It says 0.8, well that's 8 tenths. And whenever I read it, that helps me think of it as a fraction, 8 tenths. Now, remember, when my answer is a fraction, I have to reduce it. Okay, 2 goes into 8 4 times, 2 goes into 10 5 times. So that's my fraction reduced. Now they said write it as a percent. Well, think about this. And you guys can probably do this in your head, but I'm just going to show you what's happening here. We want 4/5 to be a fraction with 100 in the denominator, right? We want it to be percent. So we just cross multiply. 4 times 100, that's 400. And we divide by 5. And when I divide by 5, I get 80. So it's 80 over 100, or 80%. I just change it to a fraction with 100 on the bottom. Easy. Piece of cake. Look at this last one. It says, write 2/5 as a decimal and as a percent. Okay, well, I'm going to write it as a percent first. 2 over 5 equals how much over 100? Cross multiply. 2 times 100 is 200. Divide by 5. 5 goes into 200. 5 goes into 24 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. Bring down my 0. 5 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 5 is 0. 40. So it's 40%. Okay? Now think about this. 40% is the same as 40 hundredths. Right? 40 over 100. Well, if I wrote that as a decimal, it would be 0.40, 40 hundredths. But do I need that 0 at the end? No. I don't need a 0 at the end of a decimal like that. So as a decimal, it's just 0.4 and 40%. Easy. Piece of cake. I love using proportions with percents. It works. It makes it so easy. Let's look at this second example. It says write 1/8 as a percent rounded to a decimal point, or 1 decimal place. Well, 1 out of 8 equals what over 100? All I do is cross multiply. 1 times 100. Okay, that's 100. Divide it by 8. 8 goes into 10 once. 1 times 8, 8. 10 minus 8, 2. Bring down my 0. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 8, 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Oh, so I need my decimal point here. Alright, so I'm going to bring down this 0. 8 into 40 goes 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. 40 minus 40 is 0. I don't need to round it because I ended at x equaling 12.5 over 100 or 12.5%. When I don't write the denominator, I have to put the percent sign behind it, just to say it's this much out of 100. Okay, I'm going to pause here. We'll pick up the next part on the